Hello, 8th graders. Happy Friday. Great job on 3 weeks of distant learning. All right, so for this week, I thought we could go over some breakfast ideas and or some snacks. I'm going to talk about 2 different recipes that both involve oatmeal. And one can be used for breakfast or one can be used for a snack, and then the other's overnight oats, which pretty much will be breakfast. So I'm really gonna try my best to follow a recipe. I'll have a recipe posted, but I just kind of wing these. So I will give it my best shot. So the first one I'm going to talk about is going to be protein bites, energy bites. I'm trying to think of all the different names that they're called. But these are really good because honestly, you can throw anything into them and they're great for snacks. So I keep a container of them in the refrigerator, and when we're hungry to just grab 1 or 2, and they're sweet because I like to put M&Ms in them. But they're good. And I would pack them a lot in the boys' lunches as well too. So I'm going to give you just the basics for what this recipe needs, and then I'll tell you some things that I add to it, but feel free to incorporate lots of things that you probably have in your pantry or house. So what we're gonna start with first is oats. I use whole oats, and these just are gluten-free just because I actually like the taste of them better. So here I have about a cup of oats, okay? If you have instant oats, it's just that they're smaller and they would totally work. For instance, whenever I make like an oatmeal cookie, I use half instant and half regular, old-fashioned is maybe what they're called, but about a cup of that. Then you also need like peanut butter, or maybe you're allergic to peanuts. I know some of you are, so like a cashew or sunflower, some type of nut spread that you can use. So I have peanut butter here. I personally like to nuke it, okay, microwave it, heat it up a little bit because it's just easier to stir. Okay, so I'm trying to think of how much I have in here. Probably half a cup to 2/3 of a cup. I know this probably isn't the best recipe to follow if I'm not really using measurements, but I add so many extra things into these protein bites that I usually add a little bit more peanut butter to it. So I'm going to go ahead and incorporate that. The next one, which I'm hoping you guys have, is going to be honey or like maple syrup. I don't know if I would use like the syrup that you would like put on your pancakes or something, but I guess you could. So I have right here is just, pure maple syrup, or you can use honey. Don't heat up the honey though, if you do use that, because that's going to like kill some of the things in there. So this is about, I don't know, same, half cup to 2/3 of a cup of that. And with this recipe too, so if you had too much peanut butter or too much honey, you can then just add more oatmeal to it. And if it's too dry, then add a little bit more peanut butter and or syrup to it. All right, so you need the oatmeal, you need a nut butter, and then you need honey or maple syrup. All right, now I also add coconut. And I know some of you are like, well, I don't like coconut, but I really think that it's good to add this into it. And you really can't taste it a whole lot. It's going to add, the good fats and things into these as well too. I have like really fine shredded coconut that I added, but if you just have the flakes or the chunks, that's fine too. And you can go ahead and mix that in as well. All right, and do you see how it's forming pretty nicely? The recipe that I use-ish also calls for something called flaxseed, okay? So ground flaxseed. I'm assuming maybe most of you don't have this, and that is okay. If you have a glass jar in the refrigerator, it says wheat germ, you can use that too, but it's not a necessity. But I like to add it, and so that's about a half a cup of that. All right, and if you want, you can add dried fruit. You could add chocolate chips, which we like to add to it. You could add white chocolate chips. You could add raisins. You could add, I mean, honestly, let me know what you add to these, because there's so many different flavors and varieties that you can do, all right? But again, you want your oatmeal, you want your peanut butter, and you want your honey to be your base. And then the other things are just extra. Another thing though that I do like to add are chia seeds. All right, I do really like to add chia seeds. So if you have chia seeds in your house, you can go ahead and add these in. The only problem with chia seeds is it's like a dry, tiny little seed here. But when they get wet, then they gel, and they gel up. So if you get one of them stuck in your teeth later on, you're gonna have like this big chunk of chia seed in there. That happens a lot to me. You guys have probably noticed that. Other things I've added in, if you have in your house, which again, some of you probably don't, but peptides. That's just going to give you collagen and protein. I've added protein powder. What else have I added? I don't know. I just added a lot of stuff to it. Honestly, like all this stuff that I can just find in our cupboards, and, you know, try to make it as healthy as possible. Okay. Let's see what else. Oh, I forgot. You can also add vanilla if you want. Okay. This time I'm gonna make sure the cap is screwed on, and I don't know, just like a little teaspoon or splash of vanilla. You can add that in too to give it some flavor. And then, like I said, I like these mini M&Ms. Or you could do like mini chocolate chips. You could do the full size too. I just noticed sometimes that does get a little bit clunky. Now, you can be done. If you want, you can just go ahead and press this into like an 8x8 glass baking dish and stick it in the refrigerator. And when it's chilled, you can cut them into squares, tiny squares, okay? Like little squares, because these are kind of filling. What I like to do is take these guys, again, used for cookies, or this one can be, you know, used for scooping little fruit. But I like to take and then make them into round bites, just like that. All right, and once I am done with this, I put them on a plate and I stick them in the refrigerator for a few hours. And after that, then I just put them in a container with a lid. You usually don't want to leave food open like that in your refrigerator, because then it can kind of absorb some of the smells and taste of other things in your refrigerator. But that's it. And these are so good, so good. So that is recipe number 1. And I am just going to move to the second recipe because it's pretty much the same type of ingredients. All right, so for this recipe, we're going to make overnight oats. And I do eat this a lot for my breakfast. So I know some of you, especially if I had you third hour, and second hour was my prep, and that's usually when I ate my breakfast, I was still eating this, and you guys inquired a lot about what am I eating. So for this, you are going to want, if you have a glass jar with a lid, that works really well. If you don't, you just need to find a plastic or glass container that has a lid on it, but jars work really well. All right, so for this recipe, again, I'll tell you kind of the staple and the basics, but then you can add a whole bunch of stuff to it. All right, I'm gonna use a bigger jar just, maybe you could see it a little bit better. All right, so for this one, you want a 1/2 cup of oats. I guess if that's a lot for you, you could do a 1/4 cup, but, or just do a whole cup, make like a really big one, and then your family can all eat this too. All right, so again, I'm using the same oats, the gluten-free oats that I used for the Energy Bites, and I'm going to add that. Again, I personally really like to add the chia seeds to this as well. And I forgot my cinnamon, but I do like to add cinnamon as well. All right, but you need your oats. And you're going to want some sort of sweetener to this. I guess you could add brown sugar to it. You could add a little bit of vanilla to it. You could add some honey to it. I'm going to go ahead and add some of the maple syrup because I really like maple syrup. But you just want something a little sweet to this. All right, so once you have your oats in there and you have your sweetener in there, there are so many options that you can incorporate into your overnight oats. I know my husband loves to just add brown sugar and peanut butter. I personally really like to add fruit. It can be frozen fruit, it could be fresh fruit. You could add your chocolate chips if you want to it. You could add raisins to it. There are so many different options that you can incorporate into your overnight oats. All right, so the other thing that you need, so I have a 1/2 cup of oats. You're going to need to double the amount of liquid to your oats. So about a cup or so of milk. I just do non-dairy because my stomach doesn't really agree with dairy. So I just have a non-dairy oat milk here. And I personally like my overnight oats with a little bit more of the milk beverage. Now these oats, and especially since I added chia seeds, they're going to fill up, okay, and they're going to expand. So some people like their overnight oats like that, like it's very thick, all right? I personally don't care for that. So I add a little bit more liquid. If you in the morning get to your overnight oats and you don't like the consistency so thick, then just go ahead and add some more milk to it and stir it up and it's perfect. Some people like to take their overnight oats because they're so used to oatmeal being warm, they don't like it cold. Heat it up in the microwave. All this is doing and how it's different compared to regular oatmeal is it has a different texture to it. It's like the oat doesn't get all mushy, it stays its form, it just expands a little bit and it's just nice. So you can make this the night before, put it in the refrigerator, and then it's ready to go in the morning. So I will definitely add some fruit to this. All right, and then you make sure the lid is on and you just shake it up and you stick it in the fridge and that is it. that is it. So I hope you like these recipes. If you add different things to them, please let me know. I forgot to mention in the last video what you want for the following week. So if there is something in particular that you want to make, or if you want to send me a recipe to share with everybody else, we can certainly do that too. I miss you guys so much, and I hope you are doing well. Take care.